So today we're going to be analysing the two Browning poems, Meeting at Night and Parting at Morning. They are separate poems, but for the purposes of the exam, because they're closely linked, they are linked together. So context then, things we might want to bear in mind. This was written in 1845. It was written during the courtship period of Browning with his future wife Elizabeth Barrett, who later became known as Elizabeth Barrett Browning, also a very famous poet. Now, interestingly, and perhaps romantically, depending on your viewpoint, their courtship and marriage in 1846 were kept secret. In fact, they eloped to Italy to get married, and when they came back, Elizabeth didn't tell her family straight away that they'd got married. She held off for a little while. So we've got here, which might link to that context, this title of Meeting at Night. There's a sense here of secrecy, that this is a meeting that is dark and hidden. Perhaps there's a transgression here against the Victorian sense of propriety. Perhaps they are behaving in a way that is a little bit untoward and maybe frowned upon. And perhaps that is a reference or a reflection of Browning's relationship with his future wife. The fact that they had to keep it secret. However, this could be any unnamed couple, as we see through the poem. So the very first stanza then, we've got a picturesque or pastoral image, sort of a rural image. Usually these are contemplating something, but here there's a sense of movement. It's not still. In fact, it moves from a scene into a sense of our speaker, our character as such, moving. We're plunged into the same temporal and spatial context as the speaker. We share their viewpoint. They become our deictic centre. And you'll notice in the first couple of lines we've got a large number of colour adjectives. That evokes the scene for us. We can really envisage the scene of this person going out into this pastoral place, this beautiful place, and the poet creates these sort of visual noun phrases for us. The grey sea, the long black land, the yellow half moon. Now the alliteration in that second line of L, yellow half moon, large and low, is highly phonoaesthetic. It sounds very pleasant, very smooth, very euphonic, and it's quite enjoyable to listen to, perhaps suggesting the peace and pleasant nature of this scene. Perhaps in fact therefore reflecting the character, the speaker here, and how he is quite happy and enjoying his little journey across to meet his lover. Now the first verb that we come across is leap, and it's in the third line. Now normally verbs appear much earlier than this when we're looking at sentences, but the poets decided to rearrange the organisation of the sentences and leave this verb till quite late. So we've got at the start of the poem a sense of like timelessness and beauty and peace in the grey sea, the yellow half moon, and then suddenly we've got the waves leaping, this sense of movement and also a sense of urgency. A leap is a very quick, sharp movement. As you'll notice, throughout this first stanza we have a repetition of and, this anaphora of and we get again the movement of the speaker being emphasised to us there. It kind of pushes the tempo, pushes the pace of the poem forward, and again emphasises that urgency. In line 5, we see the first pronoun. This first person viewpoint is indicated to us, so we start to realise a bit more of the narrative of the poem, the story of what is actually going on here. You'll notice as well there's an alliterative P and alliterative S sound in lines 5 and 6, the pushing prow, and then in line 6 the speed in the slushy sand. And we get again the sense of speed and movement, this idea of pushing forward, but they are again quite phonoaesthetic. They are pleasant to listen to. We've got a sense here that he's rushing to meet his lover, but this is an enjoyable experience, something to enjoy. And we have the movement in the rhyme scheme there, which is a loose iambic tetrameter, kind of continues to move. If you listen to how it sounds, in fiery ringlets from their sleep, as I gain the cove with pushing prow and quench its speed in the slushy sand, and moving forward there. Now you'll notice we've got as I gain in line 5, and that combines quite nicely with the idea of the fields to cross in stanza 2. We've got a sense of journey across the landscape, that somebody is trying to gain momentum, to cross the landscape. And that's kind of this journey again, like I say, across the landscape from our speaker over across to his lover. The second stanza then, we have this warm sea-scented beach. This has a euphonic sound, it's very pleasant, it has a sensuous appeal to us. Nothing about this particular part of the poem is unpleasant to listen to, it all feels very enjoyable. And then we suddenly, in line 9, we have the tap and a quick sharp scratch. Suddenly there is slightly more cacophonous, there's this sudden change in pace, the tap, sharp, scratch. They don't sound as pleasant or as soft, but perhaps this is because the tap at the pane is our speaker arriving at his final destination, that he's sharply scratching at the pane because he is impatient to get in. And these material verbs suggest the movement. The speaker has reached his lover and he now cannot wait to be with her. And that includes there the blue spurt of a lighted match, that sudden lighting of passion perhaps that we might see there. And the very end of that stanza, we see that there is no dialogue. All the talk is with their hearts, the two hearts beating to each other. And that may perhaps be an allusion to sexual intercourse. It could be that they are together now finally. But all the way through we've got this light imagery, this moon fiery match. So perhaps that we're seeing the passion of their relationship all the way through. Now, the second poem is much, much shorter. This is called Parting at Morning. So we've had them meeting at night. Now they're going to leave one another. So we'll see the round the cape of a sudden. So we may have an implication here that this is an unwelcome or unwanted parting, that they don't want to leave one another. However, this poem doesn't actually have a negative tone. The sun looked over the mountain's rim. There's light again. Light imagery comes over here. It's a positive tone. And in line 3 he says, and straight was a path of gold for him. So the straight path indicates the sense of purpose. You know, there's no longing backward glances. Oh, my poor lover, I cannot believe I'm leaving you. Instead, it's a straight path and he heads down it. And in fact, it's a path of gold. So we've got this idea that the sun is creating a gold path. We're personifying the sun there, perhaps. But it also indicates that this is morning, it's a new day. Instead of the grey, yellow and black of the first poem, we've now got this gold, which is very beautiful. So perhaps them leaving one another is actually not a negative thing. In fact, perhaps it's just the fact that they have to make the most of what they've got. And he says, the need of a world of men for me. So a reference here to the outside world. It's like he's viewed his time with her as belonging to another world. The time with her is fleeting, transitory, and he has to go back to the world because it's a necessity, a need. He has to return to the world. So we've interestingly here got two types of poem. The meeting poem is called a nocturne, which is technically a poem set at night. And it's often made into a musical composition evocative of the night. Obviously this is a poem, not a song, but it does, of course, have some of the same components. Songs and poems both use specific rhythms, that sort of thing. And the parting is an aubade, which is a morning love song about lovers separating at dawn. So Browning here has used two types of poem that really importantly reflect the message of his poem. A nocturne to talk about something to do with the night, an aubade about lovers parting. And he's made sure to use those particular forms. You'll notice that there is a rhyme scheme. So in the first one we've got A, B, C, C, B, A. And then in the second one we've got A, B, B, A. So we have these kind of tightly structured rhyme schemes, and what they do is create the sense of urgency, the sense of moving forward, and the sense of journey, which is important because that's what we have here. A journey from lovers meeting at night, and then a journey into them parting at morning. And all the way through our tone is really positive, perhaps reflecting the love of Browning for his wife, Elizabeth Barrett Browning.